Military was something that my granddad was in the military. My dad was in the military. Both of my brothers had a stint in the military. One of my brothers a very long stint in the military, a stint that we shared on the later part of our careers and that we went into business following. But so military was just in my blood. I knew from 6 years old I'd practice saluting in the mirror type thing. So I went to the Marine Corps. A year later, found out I was going overseas for my first deployment. Went overseas. I was with a reserve unit, so I wasn't that full-time guy that was just there all the time. I came home. I had a life. I had a family. I had a job. I had a 3-year stint, and then another deployment in 2009. Following that deployment, I didn't really know where I was going to go, and just started working a 9 to 5, kind of finishing out my career in the military. So I thought, and then I got a wild hair to get back in and got turned on to the National Guard, which led me to a position that put me working under a Homeland Security doctrine that I did for 5 or 6 years. And then I finished it out and decided I needed to run my business. And here we are today.
Fair. So when you talked about, what was it like when you first got the notification and get deployed? What did you think?
Well, I mean, so it's crazy because, the follow-on in the military has wrecked parts of my mental capabilities, and it's wrecked parts of my memory and, just some trauma responses that I have in my prefrontal. And I have a very specific memory. I worked for Vulcan Materials Company. I was at the Danley Quarry, which is here local in Middle Tennessee, and I was standing under a piece of equipment. I guess I was 19 years old, and it was like a random day during the week. And I didn't have drill coming up, and like one of my superiors come across my phone, and I was like, oh shit. Because I signed up in the midst of, following on of 9/11. There's an active war going on. I know what I was doing. I knew what I was getting into. I knew the call was coming, but I knew that was what the call was. And so I just kind of stood there, took the call, hung up the phone, immediately called my fiance at the time. We got married right before I left. I called her, let her know, walked up and, told my boss and went back to work. At that point in time, it was just, hey, you're getting deployed. You're going to get some follow-on information. So, it didn't really strike me. It didn't really hit me as like a sense of excitement. It didn't really take the breath out of me. It didn't really, like I expected it. I knew it was coming at some point in time. So mentally I was prepared for it, for the call. Maybe not what to ensue, but I knew what I signed up for. So I took the call and went from there.
What was it like in the days going up to it? Did it feel like you're ticking down a clock like of dread, or is it more just kind of ready to go on, get it on, and get through it kind of mentality? What one did you kind of something else?
When I went into the military, I was a very military-minded person. I knew what I was doing was good. It's what I wanted to do. So I went at this full speed ahead. There was no hesitation. There was no pause for my entire military. For the 16 years that I was in the military, I pretty much tried to tackle any obstacle that came in front of me and just not look back. And so, leading up to it, and I'm assuming you're talking about actually deploying.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, leading up to it was a lot of preparation, just, making sure that, everything was in order financially. Everything was in order with my legal side, death side, family side.
That had been heavy to do all that before you left. Just to know you're really doing it, I think. Because you're so young. You're 18 at the time.
I don't
Well,
I don't
19,
know
I
if
guess.
I'm 19, and I don't know if it has to do with the way my mind just works different. And you know what you and I have had enough conversations. It felt so natural. What was going on. It
Almost felt like
having to go, having to go and fill out a will and, write down who would get this and where the money would go. Like for me personally, and it's not for everybody. It was part of it. It just felt natural. As a 19-year-old, and I understand how much apprehension and how much stress. I didn't have anything. I wasn't going to lose anything. I had my family. I mean, I did have a baby on the way and a lady I would soon marry. Yeah. But, you know, from a 19-year-old standpoint, I was still just young and dumb and just ready to go, you know.
Yeah. Where did you deploy to?
So I deployed to Fallujah, Iraq in 2006.
Shit. So you were in the hot sauce right from the beginning, man.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So we were, my unit, 324 India Company actually augmented. So we joined forces with another unit out of another part of the country, and that's who we deployed with to form one big full unit. So we deployed to Fallujah, Iraq in 2006, and what is now considered the third push through Fallujah. It was one of the bloodiest occupations and time frames. We had over 20 people that were killed over this 6 months time that we were there. We had a little over 300 people that were wounded, to include 40 plus amputees. We had a lot go on. I personally participated in over 200 documented combat missions and patrols, whatnot.
And this is like active combat. Like
this is active combat. This is if we were to go more than 48 hours without taking fire, that was because something big was planned. You know, a larger scale attack was planned on us. So it was the calm before the storm,
right?
Per se. So I mean, it was you know, we had downtime. So I don't want to say I was shot at every single day.
What was it like the first time you were shot at?
So typically, kind of like that calm before the storm, you know, during normal day-to-day activities, the enemy, the jihadists, whatever you like to call them, they knew our movements and they knew our patterns. They knew when a new unit was coming in and a unit was leaving. And so during those time periods, there would either be, you know, extreme time periods of chaos, like right around those movement dates, but then we would have a lot of time periods that were just dead. So the first, I think it was 9 days of being in country was really just kind of learning the roads, and it was real quiet. So we didn't really have a whole lot go on, you know, pop shots here and there. I didn't feel like I was shot at any point in time. But about day 12, I feel like, or that first 2-week time period, me and my guys were doing a foot patrol. We were a mounted unit, so we ran around in Humvees, but we would dismount and do foot patrols in certain areas. So we were doing a foot patrol on the outskirts, just on the outskirts of Fallujah. I can see the cityscape 200 yards away, and it's this little farm, basically, a bunch of stables. It's empty. We're walking around, kind of just poking our heads around, just checking for anything that may seem out of place. And out of nowhere, 3 inches in front of my foot, a round lands from a sniper that is taking a shot from the cityscape. And if you think about that, so if my left foot is forward as I'm walking, so is my head.
Yeah.
It's typically in line.
Yeah.
So that guy was off by a click. I mean, we're talking a 200-yard shot. So if he made a minor adjustment on his scope,
you wouldn't be sitting here.
then I wouldn't be sitting here.
Yeah.
And so in that immediate moment, you have a split second like that happened. And then your training just kicks in. And, you know, I look back, I make eye contact, and we start bounding. You know, we take off to cover, and kind of funny. As this is going on.
I like how you just smile.
Well,
laughing because kind of funny. I'm like, I'd be shitting myself and everything.
And I'm not. And that's the thing.
Know.
Like, no one's freaking out. You know,
wow.
The guys,
that's the training
guys
kicking in.
that I trained with, the guys that I deployed with were just machines, you know. Nobody freaked out. And there are guys that don't have that reaction. You know, quick caveat, and obviously not to name names, but we had a gentleman who anytime that we would leave our base, because I stayed in a forward operating base, so my base where I lived was in the city of Fallujah. Anytime he left the physical wire, which is the barrier around our base, he'd shit himself.